Sandra Hurst. My title that I've adopted is what I call the wealth strategist, because I look at wealth not just from the financial standpoint, although I do a lot with economics and finances. That is not the only area of wealth that we need to focus on, but that seems to be the easiest, so I deal with that first. But the 5 areas of wealth that I deal with are, I say, financial, physical health. Again, without physical health and well-being, we have nothing. Interpersonal wealth, that's our relationship with each other and our environment. Intellectual wealth and well-being, our mental health and our psychology and the way that we deal with that. And of course, our spiritual wealth, that is going to be the key, I believe, for us as African people to move forward. So those are the 5 areas of wealth that I deal with. My background is law, but I haven't practiced really for the last 20 years. But I use my law in lots of different areas. But the key thing about law for me is that law, the law that I studied is basically the law of man. And what I found is that the law of man is very fickle and it can change at any time. We can bring in new laws or they can change this law, whatever. But the laws of the universe, and I think those are the most important laws, are the laws that our ancestors lived by and strove by, and it's the laws that we really need to tap into if we're going to grow and continue to grow as people and grow as individuals. So I really focus on the natural laws of the universe. I have a disclaimer that I always give as well at the start of any of my presentations. I'm not a financial advisor, and for the very good reason is that financial advisors are very limited in the information that they can actually share with you and give you. Yeah.
Okay.
My aim, my goal is to, enhance people's intellectual capacity. Yes. So raising your financial literacy is really one of my goals. So a financial advisor really doesn't do that.
Mm-hmm.
So my idea really around finances and economics is to demystify the whole world of economics and finances and really just suggest ways that people can get on a different path, or look at things differently. I always say as well, don't believe anything that I tell you. The knowledge I have isn't unique to me. I mean, I found this out through doing research, through talking, through reading, through listening, through going to seminars, and that's available to everybody, yeah? But you can, anything I say that you don't agree with, go and check it out for yourself, and you have to come to your own realization. Yeah. So I'm not here to change people's minds, change people's opinions. The choice is yours. That's what right. You want to do. But if you're in a place now that you're not happy with, that you feel that you're struggling, and you feel that you want to do something different, you know that you can do something different, and you don't really know what's stopping you. I have suggestions of how to look at things differently that will take you out of that. So if you're happy with doing that and you're happy with listening to that, then that's fine. So I have many tools and techniques that helped not only myself but thousands of people, that I've come in contact with throughout my life. So as I say, the choice is yours, and this message that I bring is really for those that I want to listen. And I think you said earlier, sister, that people might have heard some of this information before. And the fact is that sometimes we may have to hear information about 6 times, 7 times before it actually starts to gel.
That's right.
Yeah? And that's because we're always growing and developing, and we're going to be in different places.
That's right.
And then we're going to put things together. So for me, life is a continuous learning process, right. Continuously to develop, our self-development and personal development, and sharing that. And you share that as well. I learn as much by, listening to people that I coach and people that I counsel as much as I hope they get from me, So that is very, very key. And like I say, every day I wake up and I think, what am I going to learn today? This is really exciting for me. So that's, as I say, that's my disclaimer with that. So. Because simply that's what I am. I'm a reacher. I'm a messenger with the information that I have. So it's really up to those who are ready to listen, ready to take it on, and ready to find out for themselves and make that rediscovery, because essentially we all have it in us. I'm really no different from anyone else. but we all have that information within us. So it's just about rediscovering that and reawakening that.
Give us a little bit of background information about you as a sister. I know that now you're an entrepreneur, but that's not what you began from. I know that you were just like you said, I mean, you are, but your beginnings is very much exactly where a lot of us are now.
Yeah, I mean, I've now designed myself or redesigned myself as a wealth strategist. I can say I'm the first international wealth strategist in the world. Yeah. And I deal with 5 areas of wealth. So the 5 areas of wealth are economic wealth, physical health, physical wealth, because that is key, because without our health, without our physical and inner wealth, we have nothing. Our interpersonal wealth, how our relationships are. Again, as human beings, we have to interact with each other. We have to learn those relationships, and that's vitally important because we cannot operate alone. We cannot grow and develop alone. We need that contact. We need physical contact with each other. Our intellectual wealth, again, is key. I mean, you touched on the psychology and the way that our mind works. This is absolutely key as well, because unless we appreciate and realize how we are being programmed and not really, begin to understand how we can reprogram ourselves to become who we need to be and to re-empower ourselves, then we're lost. Yeah, we're completely lost. So that is, one of the key things, really knowing the psychology, because, our oppressors or our, people who have assumed power over us know this inside out. They're well aware of the psychology. They know what buttons to press to get us to do what they want us to do. So we need to, understand that. And ultimately, our spiritual wealth, that is the key for me. And it's really bringing those 5 areas into balance. So all of those areas, so one without the other really doesn't work. We're going to be out of sync. So just a brief description of my background. I'm born in the UK, it's a geographical birth, location of Jamaican parents. Again, I don't believe there's anywhere really called Jamaica or called, it's just a name given to somewhere that we were stolen to or brought to. My parents came from Jamaica in the early 50s. Married, really nice story about my parents, but that's for another day. But we lived in North London. I was born in East London. My parents divorced when I was quite young, when I was 7, so we moved south. I moved south with my mother and my siblings and kind of grew up in that area. And, really being instilled with a black mother, but I was brought up really around a quite strong community. So we had this discussion, earlier this strong when I was saying that within our community we had respect. I mean, there was respect for children, there's respect for adults, and we were brought up not just so although I was
not just by our parents, but everybody in the community.
About my immediate parents, but the extended family as well. So we had a safety net, basically. We had,
a nice secure environment.
Exactly, to grow up and to grow. And we had expectations. And one of the expectations was about education was, that was seen as a way of really liberating ourselves. Education was seen as a tool to alleviate certain issues and problems that we felt that we had. And I went down, the typical educational route, not maybe in a typical way, but eventually I gained a degree. I have 2 sons, 2 wonderful sons, and they may not think I'm one of them, that's another question, but and I have looked, I had my own businesses for a number of years, certainly over the last 18, 19 years, and that came out of lots of different reasons, lots of things to do with my own self-esteem, and really the things I wanted to do with my time. I think that was my most pressing thing. See, we all have values, and our values really motivate us. So really defining what your values are, and we all have different values, and none are better or worse than the others. It's just really how we prioritize those values and how we seek to redeem them, if you like, within ourselves, within our wider communities.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes I think we feel that we're letting ourselves down if we don't live up to those things. But again, like I said, there's lots of reasons. I became, as I say, I would like to say conscious in my kind of mid-teens, when I was about 15 or 16. I had a neighbour who was a great mentor to me, who gave me my first, if you like, black book. I was always a very avid reader. My mother taught me to read and write before I went to school. So, you know, I was telling the time, you know, so I love to read and love to take on information. So my neighbour, his name is Ian Rattray, I think I can say his name, because he, like I said, is a great mentor of mine, gave me a book. It was George Jackson's Soledad Brother. And he said, well, the question he asked me was, what do you know about being black? And that was quite interesting that he used the term black. You know, it was just kind of in the Black Power era, but I really didn't take it on. It was something that was happening, but that was not really, I wasn't involved in it as such. Although, you know, I was kind of getting aware, and again, that's to deal with some of my parents. I think my father especially, I think, wasn't a vocal Garveyite, but it certainly had those kind of that thinking, yeah. So I kind of had that immersion already. So when he gave me this book, Soledad Brother, and I read it, it kind of, that was the turning point of my life. So I became what I call politicized, or became conscious at that time, and then really started seeing myself, my people, and my situation in a completely different light. So I've taken on that mantle, if you like, since then, but not as a vanguard. I mean, I wasn't out to change the world or change the community, but I realized that as myself, as an individual, I had to work with other people to do that. So mainly in the background. So I was involved in different organizations from that time, to the dismay of my mother, to a certain extent, you know, some of those battles. But again, through a certain kind of mutual respect, because she saw that I was serious about this and about my thinking. So my thinking was always growing and developing. Interesting going through that time, because initially, going through that initial consciousness, a lot of that consciousness was quite left-wing, if you like, quite communist and quite Marxist, socialist. So that's the kind of lot of material that I was reading at the time. And the material Marxist, so you had like this communist, socialist concept as opposed to this capitalist concept which we were in. So obviously the ideas about money and wealth were not something that you actually generated. So I was obviously seeing lots of people come through that era and still not really taken on
the economic development.
Mantle. Although, of course, if we look at Garvey, one of the strongholds and foundations of Garvey was about
economic development. That's right.
So that was quite interesting. So when I started to work for myself, you know, I was working for other people and organisations, but always had this little voice inside of me, you know, do this for yourself. So I always tried different types of endeavours, you know, from network marketing to importing prints from the States. You know, I was involved in one of the at the time it was the only African bookshop in South London, which was the bookshop on then Sabar Bookshop on Railton Road. We always had looking at, you know, growing our development, and then I saw a program one day. It was about African people in America, and one of the contributors to that was Paul Robeson's son, and he made a comment that, you know, unless we become economically viable, then we won't be anywhere. So that kind of really kind of switched another light bulb on for me, because again, it wasn't something that we'd openly discussed before. So again, like I said, looking at Garvey, then starting to analyse where we were as a people in terms of economics. You know, we were like either doing really, really well, you know, materially looking like that, but not really doing well. So,
yes,
you know,
exactly,
there's
like a
always
kind of
this,
false reality.
yes, yeah, there was this, you know, we didn't really own, you know, one or two
Really
people
nice
owned
cars,
shops.
nice image on the outside, but
Yeah.
there's no actual investments, economic stronghold investments.
Yeah, and those people that did, because I met one or two kind of wealthy African people at the time, but it was kind of almost like they were keeping it to themselves in a
Individualism,
sense. Yeah.
dealing with the
Or maybe, I mean, I don't know if it was necessarily deliberate to stop other people, but it was, if I let this out, then, you know, you become exposed. And again, you know, that happens again with us as well. Once we put ourselves out there, that there are people there to knock us down. And you see, the hardest people on, the hardest the people on ourselves is our own selves.
ourselves.
You know, there's nobody harder on African people than African people. There's no one that can beat up more than
Us.
African
We beat up
people.
ourselves
And
first.
again, you know, kind of looking at the reasons behind this. So, on the one hand, I'm looking at kind of my own economic development, and basically, it came down for me was my having my own autonomy. You know, being able to do what I wanted with my time, being able to have time with my children. You know, I would go to my son's open days and plays and things like that, and there would be like, you know, in my son's year, for example, there might be 400 children at an assembly with about 6 parents. You
Exactly.
know, and it's because it's 10 o'clock in the morning. You know, most parents, I have to go to work. I have to go to work.